Well, good morning. Here it is, Monday morning, and already the weekend went by awfully fast. And of course, today is March the 10th, and I do hope you had a great weekend. I hope that, as always, I hope you were able to maybe, spend some time with your family. Hopefully, you were able to, uh, have some downtime of, hopefully resting a little bit. And anyway, um, hope you had a great time, and hope that you had a great Sunday, a good day of worship at your place of choice. I know we had a great Sunday, and now here God has given us the breath to breathe here on this Monday morning, and certainly hope this morning finds you feeling well. Hope it finds you well rested and ready to tackle the opportunities that God has blessed us with here on this Monday morning. This morning, I'd like to share a devotional with you entitled Jesus BC. In Luke chapter 24, verses 25 through 27, it says this: Then Jesus said to them, "You foolish people, you find it so hard to believe all that the prophets wrote in the scriptures. Wasn't it clearly predicted that the Messiah would have to suffer all these things before entering his glory?" Then Jesus took them through the writings of Moses and all the prophets, explaining from all the scriptures the things concerning himself. Now, did Jesus exist before the Nativity in Bethlehem? Was there a Christ before Christmas? Well, the answer is yes. Jesus' arrival in Bethlehem is when the incarnation took place. The incarnation is when God became man. But that's not when Jesus came into being. Jesus, being God, has always been, and he always will be. He's eternal because he is God. Understanding that really opens up the scripture to us in a whole new way. The Bible is divided, into two parts, the Old Testament and the New Testament. The Old Testament covers events that occurred before Jesus' birth. The New Testament covers events surrounding Jesus' birth and after. It's similar to the way we divide history. The Old Testament is BC, before Christ. The New Testament is AD, Anno Domini, which is Latin for in the year of in the year of the Lord. Casual readers of the Bible, they may assume that Jesus is a New Testament figure, an AD man, but that's not the case. Now remember, he's eternal, so there's no such period as BC because nothing existed before Christ. In John chapter 1, verses 1 and 2, it says this: In the beginning of the Word already existed. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. He existed in the beginning with God. And then in Colossians chapter 1, verse 17, the Apostle Paul writes of Christ, saying, He existed before anything else, and he holds all creation together. Not only has Christ existed forever, he also is the central figure of Scripture. Not just the New Testament, but the Old Testament as well. You can't fully appreciate God's amazing plan of salvation until you connect the dots between the Old Testament passages that anticipate, Christ's coming in the New Testament passages that detail his, saving work. Luke chapter 24, which I read out of, to begin with, tells the story of two followers of Christ who were walking in the village of Emmaus 3 days after Jesus' crucifixion, just as news of his resurrection was starting to spread. And they were sad and they were confused. Jesus appeared to them, but kept them from recognizing him at first. Jesus' words to them, "You foolish people," may seem harsh. But you see, Jesus, he wanted them to understand that it wasn't the time for mourning or confusion. The Messiah was alive. God's plan of salvation had been accomplished. Death had been conquered. Centuries of prophecy and promises had been fulfilled. But then in verse 27, which I read, it says, Jesus took them through the writings of Moses and all the prophets, explaining from all the scriptures the things concerning himself. See, these men likely were no strangers to Old Testament scripture, but they had failed to make some very important connections. Not only were Jesus's suffering, death, and resurrection all part of God's prophetic plan, but so was just about everything else he did. I mean, the evidence was there, in the words of Scripture, for anyone who searched for it. I mean, Jesus helped his followers recognize the clues that they had missed. Here's the deal: we are never alone in life. I mean, that's the message that we see from Genesis all the way through to Revelation. Jesus has always been there. He appeared to Abraham and Jacob and to many others. He was never far from the minds of the Old Testament prophets. And those who are his disciples, he says in Matthew 28:20, I am with you always, even to the end of the age. See, that's the important thing to remember is Jesus, he's always been there. He always will be. He's with us forever. Here's a question for you to reflect on today. What does the Old Testament reveal about God and his plan of salvation? Hope that'll help you kind of think about today. Hope you have a wonderful day. And remember, Angie and I, we love you guys and we're praying for you. And Lord willing, I'll see you tomorrow morning. God bless you.